The steady beep of hospital monitors became my daily soundtrack, a constant reminder that I was stuck here while my sister stole everything I'd worked for. I watched, through bleary eyes, as the nurse adjusted my IV, pretending not to hear her gossip with her colleague about the big Crawford wedding this weekend. My name is Trisha, and I should have been giving the maid of honor speech at that wedding. Instead, I was fighting off a severe case of pneumonia that landed me in this sterile prison, while my younger sister Gianna swooped in to take my place. "Your vitals are looking better," the nurse said, marking something on her chart. "You might be able to go home soon." "Soon isn't good enough," I muttered, reaching for my phone. 27 missed calls from my best friend Penelope, but nothing from Gianna or my mom. Typical. The door creaked open, and my father Jesse appeared, looking worn and apologetic. "Hey, sweetheart, how are you feeling?" "Like I've been replaced," I said, unable to keep the bitterness from my voice. "Has Gianna finished destroying my reputation yet?" He sighed, settling into the chair beside my bed. "Your sister is just trying to help. The wedding's in 3 weeks, and someone needed to step up." "Step up?" "Dad, she told everyone I abandoned my duties on purpose. Holly texted me that Gianna's been spreading rumors about me being unreliable and attention-seeking by getting sick now. I'm sure that's not—" "Check your phone," I interrupted. Mom posted pictures from the emergency maid of honor dress, fitting on Facebook. Everyone's commenting about how perfect Gianna looks in my dress, the one I spent months picking out. Dad pulled out his phone, his frown deepening as he scrolled. "Your mother's just excited. You know how she gets with these things." "Yeah, especially when it comes to her precious Gianna." I coughed, my chest burning. "Remember my college graduation, when Gianna showed up in a white dress, and Mom spent the whole ceremony taking photos of her instead of watching me get my diploma?" "Trisha." "Or my 25th birthday, when Gianna announced her engagement during my party, and Mom immediately started planning their wedding, completely forgetting about my celebration." The monitor's beeping increased with my rising anger. A text notification lit up my phone. Holly sending me a video from the new maid of honor dress fitting. "Just watch this, Dad," I said, holding up my phone. The video showed Gianna twirling in my carefully chosen burgundy dress, while my mother clapped enthusiastically. "Oh, honey, you were meant to wear this." Mom's voice gushed through the speakers. "So much better than the original plan. Everything happens for a reason." Dad winced, finally seeing what I'd been trying to tell him. "I'll talk to them," he promised. "Don't bother." I turned away, staring out the window at the gray Seattle sky. "Just go. I'm sure you have more wedding preparations to attend to." After he left, I pulled up my laptop and started scrolling through social media. Each post felt like a knife twist. Gianna at the cake tasting I'd arranged. Gianna reviewing my carefully planned seating arrangements. Gianna rehearsing the speech I'd spent months writing. My phone buzzed again. Penelope calling for the 28th time. This time, I answered. "Finally," she exclaimed. "I've been trying to reach you all day. Have you seen what your sister posted?" "Do I want to know?" "She's using your speech, Trisha. The one you wrote about growing up with Kenneth. About all your memories with him as your neighbor. She's telling everyone those are her memories." The monitor beside me started beeping frantically as my heart rate spiked. A nurse rushed in, concerned, but I waved her away. "She's stealing my life," I whispered into the phone. "And everyone's letting her." "Not everyone," Penelope said firmly. "I've got your back, and once you're out of there, we're going to show everyone who Gianna really is." I looked at my reflection in the window, pale, tired, but with a fire in my eyes I hadn't seen in days. "You're right. I'm done being the good sister who stays quiet while Gianna takes everything. That's my girl. What's the plan?" A small smile curved my lips as I watched another notification pop up. Gianna posting about her original maid of honor speech. "First, I need to get out of this hospital. Then we're going to give my dear sister exactly what she deserves." And what's that? The truth pen. Every last bit of it. Even if it ruins her perfect wedding. The monitor's beeping steadied as my resolve strengthened. Gianna might have stolen my role, my dress, and my speech, but she'd forgotten one crucial thing. I had nothing left to lose. And a sister with nothing to lose is a dangerous thing indeed. 3 days after my discharge, I sat in Penelope's apartment, surrounded by wedding planning documents and social media printouts. My chest still ached, but anger was proving to be excellent medicine. "Look at this," Penelope said, sliding her phone across the coffee table. "Holly's been texting me about the rehearsal dinner." I grabbed the phone, scrolling through the messages. My hands started shaking as I read. "Gianna's completely changed the seating arrangement," Holly wrote. "She told everyone Trisha would have wanted it this way since she's too sick to attend. She's even uninvited some of Trisha's friends to make room for her own." "She what?" I croaked, my voice still raspy from pneumonia. "Those were my college roommates. I'm the one who introduced Kenneth to half these people." Penelope poured me another cup of tea. "Keep reading." The worst part, Holly's next message read, is what she said about the speech. She's telling everyone she wrote it herself, about growing up next door to Kenneth. I know that's not true. Gianna didn't even move to Seattle until high school. I threw the phone down. "That's it. I'm calling Kenneth right now." "Wait." Penelope grabbed my wrist. "We need to be smart about this. Gianna's got everyone wrapped around her finger, including your mom. If we go in guns blazing, they'll just paint you as the jealous, unstable sister." The doorbell rang, making us both jump. Penelope checked the peephole and quickly opened the door. Holly stood there, looking nervous and clutching her purse. "I'm so sorry, Trisha," she burst out as soon as she saw me. "I should have said something sooner, but Gianna, she's very convincing." "Sit down," I said, patting the couch beside me. "Tell me everything." Holly perched on the edge of the cushion. "It started the day you were hospitalized. Gianna told everyone you'd asked her to take over, that you were worried about letting Kenneth down." "I was unconscious," I exclaimed. "I couldn't ask her anything." "I know that now, but she had these texts, supposedly from you." Holly pulled out her phone, showing us a conversation thread. My blood ran cold. The texts looked real. They even had my profile picture, but I'd never written them. "She faked these," Penelope said, examining the messages. "Look at the timestamps. They're from when Trisha was already in the ICU." Holly's eyes widened. "There's more. At the last dress fitting, I overheard her talking to your mom about the wedding budget. She's been using your credit card, Trisha. She told your mom you insisted on paying for the changes she's making." "She what?" I grabbed my laptop, logging into my bank account. Sure enough, there were thousands of dollars in new charges from bridal shops and catering companies. "That's fraud," Penelope said quietly. "We could go to the police." I shook my head. "No, that's too easy. She needs to face everyone she's lied to." My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. "Darling, Gianna's done such a wonderful job stepping in for you. She even improved your speech. You should hear how she tells the story about Kenneth teaching her to ride a bike when they were kids." "That was my story," I whispered. "I was 7 years old when Kenneth helped me learn to ride in his driveway. Gianna didn't even know him then." Holly's phone chimed. She looked at it and gasped. "Oh God, Trisha, look at this." She held up her phone, showing Instagram. There was Gianna, wearing my dress, standing at a podium. The caption read, "Rehearsing my heartfelt maid of honor speech for my best friend since childhood. Some bonds are just meant to be." "Wedding prep, Schachter, sister love." "I can't believe Kenneth is falling for this," I said. "He knows the truth about when she moved here." "Actually," Holly hesitated. "Kenneth's been weird lately. Yesterday at dinner, he tried to bring up some old neighborhood memories, and Gianna kept changing the subject. I think he's starting to notice something's off." Penelope sat forward, her eyes gleaming. "That's our way in. Kenneth's the key to all of this." "But how?" I asked. "Gianna barely lets him out of her sight." Holly's phone chimed again. She looked at it and smiled slowly. "I think I can help with that. Kenneth just texted me. He wants to meet for coffee tomorrow, alone. He says he needs to talk about some concerns. I felt a spark of hope for the first time in weeks. Set it up, but don't meet at our usual coffee shop. Gianna's always there. There's that new place on 4th, Penelope suggested. The one with the private meeting rooms in the back. Holly nodded, typing rapidly. Done. Tomorrow at 2. I looked at the Instagram photo again, at my sister wearing my dress and stealing my memories. Perfect. It's time Kenneth learned who he's really marrying. The three of us spent the next hour planning, our voices low and intense. By the time Holly left, we had the beginnings of a strategy that would make Gianna wish she'd never touched my speech or my life. The coffee shop on 4th was exactly what we needed. Quiet, discreet, and most importantly, far from Gianna's usual haunts. I sat in one of the back rooms with Holly, watching Kenneth fidget with his coffee cup. I feel like I'm going crazy, he said, running a hand through his hair. The stories Gianna's telling. They don't match my memories at all. What do you mean? I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. Like yesterday, she was telling everyone about how we used to build snow forts together when we were kids. But I distinctly remember doing that with you, Trisha. Gianna didn't move here until we were in high school. Holly pulled out her phone. I have something you need to see. She played a video from Gianna's bachelorette party last weekend, one I hadn't been well enough to attend. On screen, a tipsy Gianna lounged on a hotel bed, surrounded by bridesmaids. God, it was so perfect, she slurred, grinning. Trisha getting sick was like the best thing that could have happened. Now I get to tell all our childhood stories like they're mine. Kenneth doesn't even question it anymore. Kenneth's face went pale. When was this? Last Saturday, Holly said quietly. There's more. The video continued. Mom's totally on board too. Gianna giggled. She always liked me better anyway. Poor boring Trisha, always doing the right thing. Well, look where that got her, stuck in a hospital while I get everything she planned. Kenneth stood up so abruptly, his chair scraped against the floor. I need some air. Wait. I grabbed his arm. There's something else you should know. She's been using my credit card to make changes to the wedding, without my permission. He sat back down heavily. That's why the budget suddenly expanded. She told me you'd insisted on upgrading everything. I was in the ICU, Kenneth. I couldn't insist on anything. His phone buzzed. Gianna's face lit up the screen. He declined the call. The speech she's planning to give, he said slowly, about learning to ride a bike in my driveway. That was me, I said softly. You held on to the back of my bike and promised not to let go. But you did, and I rode all the way to the end of the street by myself. And then you crashed into Mrs. Peterson's rose bushes, he finished, a faint smile crossing his face. I helped pick thorns out of your hair for an hour. Holly's phone chimed with a text. Her eyes widened as she read it. Guys, we might have a problem. Gianna just posted that she's heading to this coffee shop. Someone must have seen us and told her. How long do we have? I asked, gathering my things. 10 minutes, maybe less. Kenneth stood up again, but this time with purpose. I need to see more evidence. Everything you have. Come to my apartment, I said. Penelope's there with all the documentation, the credit card statements, the fake texts, everything. We hurried out through the back door, just as I heard Gianna's voice in the front of the coffee shop. Kenneth's car was parked in the alley. Thank God for small mercies. The drive to my place was tense and silent. Kenneth white-knuckled the steering wheel, while Holly monitored Gianna's increasingly frantic texts. She knows you were there, Holly reported. She's not happy. My phone started ringing. My mother. I declined the call. She's turning them all against you again, isn't she? Kenneth asked quietly. That's what she does, I replied. She takes what she wants and makes everyone believe she deserves it. We pulled up to my building, just as Penelope texted that she'd found something big. When we got to my apartment, she was sitting on the couch with her laptop, looking shell-shocked. You need to see this, she said, turning the screen toward us. I was going through the backup of Gianna's old phone. The one you gave me access to last year when you were helping her recover her photos. On screen was a video from 2 months ago. Gianna sat at her vanity, recording herself. "Dear Diary," she said with a smirk, "everything's going according to plan. I've already convinced Mom that Trisha's too busy to handle the maid of honor duties properly. One small push, and she'll be out completely. Then I'll finally have everything. The attention, the perfect wedding story. And best of all, everyone will see that I'm the better sister. I always have been. They just needed help realizing it." The video ended. Kenneth sat down hard on my couch, his face ashen. "The wedding's in 2 weeks," he said. "What am I supposed to do?" I looked at the faces around me, Holly's concern, Penelope's determination, Kenneth's devastation. "We're going to show everyone exactly who Gianna is," I said. "And I know exactly how to do it." My parents' house loomed before me, its familiar facade now feeling somehow threatening. Kenneth squeezed my hand before we walked up the driveway. "Are you sure about this?" he asked. "They need to see the truth," I said, pressing the doorbell. My mother opened the door, her smile falling when she saw me. "Trisha, you should be resting. And Kenneth, Gianna's been looking everywhere for you. We need to talk," I said, stepping inside. All of us. Dad sat in his usual armchair, looking up from his newspaper. "What's going on? Where's Gianna?" Kenneth asked. "Right here." My sister appeared at the top of the stairs, her face darkening when she saw us. "Kenny, why haven't you been answering my calls?" "Maybe because he's seen this," I said, pulling out my laptop. I placed it on the coffee table and played the video from her old phone. The room fell silent as Gianna's recorded voice filled the space, detailing her plans to usurp my position. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. "That's obviously edited," Gianna said quickly. "Trisha's just jealous because I'm doing a better job than she would have." "Really?" I pulled out my credit card statements, then explained these charges. Thousands of dollars spent while I was in the ICU. "You told me to use your card," Gianna protested. "You said you wanted to help." I was unconscious. My voice rose. "I couldn't tell you anything." "Girls, please," Mom started, but Dad cut her off. "Let them finish, Esme. I want to hear this." Kenneth stepped forward, his voice steady. "Tell them about the bike story, Gianna, the one you've been practicing for your speech." Gianna's face paled slightly. "What about it?" "You've been telling everyone how I taught you to ride a bike in my driveway when we were kids. But you didn't move here until high school." That was Trisha's story. I must have confused the memories," Gianna stammered. "Show them the bachelorette party video," Kenneth said quietly. Holly, who had been silently recording everything on her phone, pulled up the video. We watched again as drunk Gianna bragged about stealing my stories. "Oh God," Mom whispered. "It's not what it looks like," Gianna said, desperation creeping into her voice. "I was drunk. I was just joking around." "Like you were joking when you did this." I pulled up the fake text messages she'd created. "Or when you told everyone I abandoned my duties on purpose." Dad stood up, his face stern. "Gianna, is this true? Did you deliberately set out to replace your sister?" "Of course not." "Mom, tell them. Tell them how much better everything is with me in charge." But Mom was staring at the credit card statements, her hands shaking. "These charges. Gianna, you committed fraud." "Only because Trisha wouldn't help willingly," Gianna shouted. "She always has to be the perfect one, the responsible one. For once, I wanted people to see me the way they see her. By stealing my memories, my money, my place in the wedding." I stepped toward her. "You're my sister, Gianna. I would have helped you if you'd just asked." "Liar." She spun toward our mother. "Mom, you understand, right? You always said I deserved more recognition." Mom looked stricken. "I never meant, I didn't think." "That's the problem," Dad said quietly. "None of us wanted to see what was really happening." Kenneth moved to stand beside me. "The wedding's off, Gianna. I can't marry someone who would do this to their own sister." "No." Gianna lunged for him. "You can't do this to me. Everything's perfect now." Perfect. I laughed bitterly. You built this whole wedding on lies. What did you think would happen when people started remembering the truth? Get out, she hissed at me. This is all your fault. No, Gianna, Dad said, his voice firm. You're the one who needs to leave. Go to your apartment. Cool down. We'll discuss this tomorrow when everyone's calmer. Gianna looked around the room, seeing nothing but disappointed faces. With a scream of frustration, she grabbed her purse and stormed out, slamming the door behind her. The silence that followed was deafening. I'm so sorry, Trisha, Mom finally said, tears in her eyes. I should have seen what she was doing. We all should have, Dad added. My phone buzzed, a social media notification. Gianna had already posted about the confrontation, painting herself as the victim of a jealous sister and an unsupportive family. It's not over, I said, showing them the post. She's still trying to control the narrative. Kenneth took my hand again. Then we'll show everyone the truth, all of it. How? Mom asked. I looked at Holly, still recording with her phone. We've got evidence, lots of it. And I think it's time everyone saw exactly who Gianna really is. The rehearsal dinner, Kenneth said suddenly. That's when she's planning to give her speech, when everyone will be there. I nodded slowly. Perfect. Let's give her an audience she'll never forget. The week before, the rehearsal dinner passed in a blur of damage control. Gianna had gone into full offensive mode, posting tearful Instagram stories about family betrayal and sharing carefully edited versions of our confrontation. Look at this, Penelope said, showing me her phone during our strategy session at my apartment. She's turned off comments on all her posts. Smart move, Holly added. After that aunt of yours called her out about the bike story, she can't risk anyone else fact-checking her memories. Kenneth paced behind my couch. My parents are furious. They remember everything, all the real stories with Trisha. They're threatening to pull their contribution to the wedding. Don't, I said quickly. We need everything to proceed as planned until the rehearsal dinner. My phone rang. My mother again. I put her on speaker. Gianna's here, she said, sounding exhausted. She's demanding we choose sides. Says if we don't support her version of events, she'll tell everyone about Dad's gambling problem from 10 years ago. What gambling problem? I asked. Exactly, Mom replied. She's making things up now, getting desperate. A knock at my door made us all jump. Holly checked the peephole and quickly stepped back. It's Gianna. Don't open it, Kenneth whispered. Trisha, Gianna's voice came through the door. I know you're in there. Open up, or I'll tell everyone about that night in Vegas. I looked at Kenneth confused. I've never been to Vegas, but I have, he said slowly. With my college friends. Gianna wasn't there either. She's completely lost it, Penelope muttered. The pounding on the door continued. Fine, Gianna shouted. Keep hiding. But I've got proof of everything. We heard her storm away, heels clicking down the hallway. Proof of what? Holly wondered. Her own lies? My laptop pinged with an email notification from Gianna with attachments. Should I open it? I asked. Kenneth nodded. We need to know what we're dealing with. I clicked the email. Inside were several photos, clearly photoshopped images showing me in compromising positions, my face badly edited onto someone else's body. Oh my God, Penelope breathed. She's actually trying to blackmail you with fake photos. This is getting out of hand, Kenneth said, pulling out his phone. I'm calling the police. Wait, I said. This is perfect. Everyone stared at me. Don't you see? She's giving us exactly what we need. Proof of her desperation, her manipulation. And she's documenting it all herself. Holly's eyes widened. The metadata on these photos. We can prove when they were edited. And by whom? Penelope added, already typing on her laptop. The editing software leaves a digital signature. My phone buzzed with a text from Dad. Gianna just left the house. She's telling everyone she has proof that you tried to sabotage her relationship with Kenneth years ago. Says she's going to reveal everything at the rehearsal dinner. Let her, I said, a plan forming. That's exactly what we want. Are you sure? Kenneth asked. She seems unstable. That's why it has to be public, I explained. If we confront her privately again, she'll just spin another story. But if she melts down in front of everyone, while we have proof of all her lies, Penelope finished nodding. It's perfect. Holly's phone chimed. Guys, she just posted that she's going to expose the truth about Trisha at the rehearsal dinner. Says she has shocking evidence that will change everything. Good, I said. Let her build it up. The bigger she makes it, the harder she'll fall, Kenneth said quietly. I can't believe I almost married her. Another email notification popped up, this time from the wedding venue. Gianna had changed the seating arrangement again, moving me to a table by the kitchen. She still thinks she has control, I said, forwarding the email to Kenneth. She doesn't realize the venue won't make any changes without the groom's approval. I'll handle it, he said, already dialing the venue's number. Penelope looked up from her laptop. I've got the proof of photo manipulation, and Holly's videos are time-stamped and backed up. We're ready. I looked around at my support team, my best friend, my almost brother-in-law, and the maid of honor who chose truth over loyalty to a lie. In 3 days, we'd all be at the rehearsal dinner, watching Gianna try to destroy me with her evidence. One last thing, I said, pulling up my original maid of honor speech. I think it's time to make some edits. If Gianna wants to tell stories, let's make sure everyone hears the real ones. The room fell silent as I began to type, each word a brick in the wall of truth that would finally show everyone who my sister really was. The evening of the rehearsal dinner arrived with an electric tension in the air. I stood in the venue's bathroom, adjusting my dark blue dress while Penelope checked our equipment one last time. Laptops connected to the projector, she confirmed. Holly has the backup files on her phone, and your parents are ready with their parts. The bathroom door swung open. Gianna stood there, wearing a white cocktail dress that looked suspiciously like a mini wedding gown. Her smile was razor-sharp. Well, well, she said. Didn't expect you to actually show up. It's my speech tonight, too. Remember, I kept my voice steady. She laughed. Oh, honey, nobody wants to hear your bitter little stories. But mine? She patted her clutch. Mine will have everyone talking for years. I'm sure they will, I agreed, meeting her eyes in the mirror. Just not the way you think. Her smile faltered slightly. Before she could respond, Mom appeared in the doorway. Girls, everyone's being seated. Gianna, Kenneth's looking for you. Of course he is, Gianna preened, shooting me one last smirk before sashaying out. Mom grabbed my hand. Are you sure about this? She needs to face the consequences, I said. You saw what she sent me yesterday. The latest blackmail attempt had been her most desperate yet. Poorly edited videos supposedly showing me confessing to sabotaging her relationships over the years. Your father has the technical expert ready to testify about the forgeries, Mom whispered, and Kenneth's parents brought their old home videos, just in case. We walked into the dining room, where 60 guests sat around elegantly decorated tables. Gianna held court at the head table, Kenneth beside her looking increasingly uncomfortable. Holly intercepted me before I could sit at my assigned table near the kitchen. Change of plans, she said, loudly enough for Gianna to hear. Kenneth insisted you sit with the family. Gianna's face darkened as I took my seat at the main table, directly across from her. But the seating cards were changed back to the original arrangement, Kenneth said firmly. My wedding, my rules. Our wedding, she corrected quickly, placing a hand on his arm. He didn't respond. The first course arrived, accompanied by the soft murmur of conversation and the occasional clink of glasses. Gianna kept glancing at her phone, typing rapidly under the table. Everything okay? I asked innocently. Perfect, she snapped. Just perfect. Dad stood up, tapping his glass. Before we begin the speeches, I'd like to say something. He pulled out his phone. Gianna, I received your email about my supposed gambling addiction. I have to admit, I'm impressed by the fake bank statements you created. Unfortunately for you, I've been with the same bank for 40 years, and they were happy to provide documentation proving these are forgeries. The room fell silent. Gianna's face went white. What's he talking about? Kenneth asked her. He's lying, she said quickly. Daddy, how could you? I also have something to share. Kenneth's mother stood up. We brought some old home videos from when the kids were young. Would anyone like to see Kenneth teaching Trisha to ride a bike? We have the original tape from 1999. No, Gianna shot to her feet. This is my rehearsal dinner, my night. And I have proof that Trisha is the liar. She fumbled with her clutch, pulling out her phone. Look at these photos. Look at what your perfect Trisha has been hiding. The photos appeared on her phone screen. The same badly photoshopped images she'd tried to blackmail me with. Interesting, Penelope said, standing up with her laptop. Would you like to explain the metadata on these photos? The editing timestamps from last week? The digital signature from your personal copy of Photoshop? Gianna's hand shook. You don't understand. She ruined everything. She always had to be the perfect one, the responsible one. I just wanted… What? I asked quietly. What did you want, Gianna? Everything, she screamed. Your life, your memories, your perfect childhood with Kenneth. It should have been me. The room erupted in shocked whispers. Kenneth slowly stood up. I think, he said, his voice carrying across the suddenly silent room, that this wedding isn't happening. No, Gianna grabbed his arm. No, you can't. I have more proof. I have… What you have, Holly interrupted, holding up her phone, is a lot of explaining to do. I've been recording everything, including your confession just now. Gianna looked around the room wildly, seeing dozens of shocked and disgusted faces. Her carefully constructed facade cracked completely. You're all against me, she shrieked. You've always been against me. She grabbed her wine glass and threw it. Red liquid splattering across the white tablecloth like blood. Then she ran from the room, leaving behind nothing but stunned silence and the evidence of her lies. Kenneth turned to me, his face grim. I think it's time for your speech, Trisha, the real one. I stood up, pulling out my notes. Actually, I have something better to share first. The projector hummed to life as Penelope dimmed the lights. I stood at the front of the room, my hands steady as I held the remote. Before I give my speech, I want to show you all something Gianna didn't want anyone to see. I clicked play. The screen filled with a video from my hospital room. There was Gianna, thinking I was asleep, rifling through my purse and taking photos of my credit cards. Oh my God, Mom whispered. The next clip showed her at the bridal shop, using my card to upgrade her dress. Just charge it to this. Her voice rang clear. My sister insists. There's more, I said, clicking through the evidence. Security footage from the hospital showed her telling the nurses not to let certain visitors in. Bank statements, forged documents, the fake social media posts she'd created under my name. Kenneth's mother stood up. I have something to add. She walked to the front and handed me a USB drive. We found this when we were looking for the bike riding video. I plugged it in, and suddenly there was young Kenneth and me, playing in his backyard. Clip after clip of our shared childhood. Moments Gianna had tried to steal. That's enough, a voice cracked through the silence. Gianna stood in the doorway, mascara streaking down her face. You've made your point. Have I? I turned to face her. Because I don't think everyone understands yet. Mom, did you know Gianna was the one who called the hospital, pretending to be you, trying to get information about my condition? Mom's face went pale. What? Show them the call logs, Gianna spat. Show them everything. But first, why don't you tell everyone why you were really in the hospital? I froze. What are you talking about? You weren't just sick with pneumonia, were you? Her smile was cruel. Tell them about the anxiety medication. Tell them about the panic attacks. Gianna, don't, Dad warned. Why not? Everyone deserves to know that perfect Trisha was falling apart planning my wedding. That she couldn't handle the pressure of making everything perfect for her little sister. The room was silent. I took a deep breath. You're right, I said quietly. I had a panic attack that triggered an asthma attack, which led to pneumonia. Want to know why? Because you kept changing everything I planned, maxing out my credit cards, and gaslighting me into thinking I was failing at being your maid of honor. Holly stood up. I have the texts you sent her, the ones where you told her she was letting everyone down, that she wasn't good enough. You don't understand. Gianna's voice cracked. She had everything. The perfect childhood, the perfect relationship with Kenneth, mom and dad's approval. I just wanted to know what that felt like. By stealing my identity, I stepped closer to her. By trying to erase me from my own life? I deserve it more, she screamed. I've always deserved it more. Deserved what, Gianna? Mom's voice cut through the tension. She stood up, looking more serious than I'd ever seen her. The attention, the love? Did you think we didn't love you enough? You always loved her more, Gianna sobbed. Always praised her, always held her up as the example. That's not true, Dad said. We loved you both. But you always wanted what Trisha had, instead of appreciating what you had yourself. Kenneth walked to the front of the room. I think we need to address something else. He pulled out his phone. Gianna, my sister found these messages on your phone. The color drained from Gianna's face. Kenny, don't. Messages to your ex-boyfriend, he continued, from last week, planning to meet up after the wedding. The room erupted in gasps. Gianna lunged for the phone, but Kenneth held it out of reach. It's not what you think, she cried. I was Just what? Kenneth's voice was ice. Just planning to cheat on me while spending my family's money, while destroying your sister's life. I think, Mom said, standing up, that it's time for you to leave, Gianna. We'll discuss this when you're ready to tell the truth. All of it. Fine. Gianna grabbed her purse. But don't think this is over, Trisha. You haven't seen everything I have on you. Actually, Penelope called out, the police have seen everything you have, including the forged documents and credit card fraud. They're very interested in speaking with you. Gianna's face crumpled. She looked around the room one last time, seeing nothing but disappointed and angry faces, then fled. The silence that followed was deafening until Kenneth cleared his throat. Trisha, he said, I believe you still have a speech to give. The real one this time. I looked at the faces around me, my parents, finally seeing the truth. Holly and Penelope, my steadfast supporters, and Kenneth, the childhood friend who deserved so much better than my sister's lies. Actually, I said, I think I have something better to say. I set down my notes and faced the room full of stunned guests. This isn't going to be a maid of honor speech. Instead, I want to tell you all a different story. Kenneth nodded encouragingly as I continued. When Gianna first moved in with us in high school, she used to sneak into my room at night, not to steal anything, not to cause trouble, but because she was scared. She'd had a rough time before coming to live with us, bouncing between relatives after our aunt couldn't care for her anymore. Mom's hand flew to her mouth. Dad reached for her. I used to tell her stories about growing up here, about having Kenneth next door, about all the adventures we had. She would listen for hours, completely fascinated. I didn't realize then that she wasn't just listening. She was wishing those memories were hers. Trisha, Mom whispered. We never knew. Neither did I, not really. I thought sharing my memories would help her feel more at home. Instead, it made her want to become me. I turned to Kenneth. That's why she pursued you so hard in college. That's why she needed to take my place in the wedding. She wasn't just stealing my stories. She was trying to steal the life she thought she should have had. The door creaked open. Gianna stood there, mascara streaked down her face, a police officer behind her. Ma'am, the officer said. She insisted on coming back in to say something. I nodded. Let her speak. Gianna stepped forward, her designer dress now wrinkled and wine-stained. You don't get to tell my story, she said, but her voice lacked its usual venom. Then tell it yourself, I challenged. The real one this time. She looked around the room, at all the faces waiting for truth instead of manipulation. Something in her seemed to crack. I hated you, she said quietly. Not because you were perfect, but because you were real. Everything about you was real. Your memories, your relationships, your life. Mine was all borrowed or fake or, she choked back a sob. I don't even know who I am without pretending to be you. Miss, the officer stepped forward. We still need to discuss the credit card fraud. I know, Gianna whispered. I'll pay it all back, Trisha, somehow. That's not enough. Mom stood up. You need help, Gianna, real help. We found a treatment program, Dad added. For identity issues and compulsive behavior, we want you to go. You mean you still, Gianna's voice cracked. After everything I did, you're still my sister, I said. But I want my real sister back. The one who used to sneak into my room for stories. The one who has her own memories to make, her own life to live. Kenneth stepped forward. The wedding is officially canceled. But maybe something good can come from this after all. Gianna looked at him, tears falling freely now. I did love you, Kenny, just not as much as I loved the idea of being Trisha. I know, he said gently. That's why you need to get help. The officer cleared his throat. If the family is willing to handle the financial aspects privately, and if Miss Gianna agrees to enter treatment, we can handle this without pressing charges. Agreed, I said immediately. Gianna stared at me. Why would you do that, after everything? Because that's what real sisters do, I replied. They help each other become better, not become each other. She nodded slowly, then turned to the officer. I'm ready to go. As they left, Mom turned to the guests. Thank you all for coming. Obviously there won't be a wedding, but please stay, enjoy the dinner. Sometimes the best families are made through difficult moments of truth. People began talking quietly among themselves as the staff served the main course. Kenneth sat beside me, taking my hand. You know, he said, I always wondered why Gianna never had any childhood stories of her own to tell. I should have seen it sooner. We all should have, Dad said. But we can't change the past. We can only move forward. Penelope raised her glass to moving forward, and to Trisha, who showed us that sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying someone, but about helping them face the truth. To truth, Holly added, raising her glass. As the guests echoed the toast, I felt something shift inside me. The anger and hurt were still there, but alongside them was hope. Hope that somewhere beneath all her lies and manipulation, my real sister was waiting to emerge. To new memories, I said quietly, raising my own glass. The real ones we'll make together. The evening continued, not with the rehearsal dinner we'd planned, but with something more valuable. Honest conversations, genuine connections, and the first steps toward healing a family broken not by hatred, but by the desperate need to belong.